Hi everyone, I thought I'd do a quick follow-up on the webinar. I got some questions in the chat and I did say I would answer those questions. And instead of writing long emails, I thought I'd just do a short video. That might be a little bit easier. So the first question was, not really a question, really more of a comment. I'm severely struggling to influence my directors on the basic principles of health and safety. That sounds familiar. Last chance saloon, but I'm off. Yes, okay. Well, I've been there before. What I would recommend when you've got really resistant directors, plural almost, you could tackle them one by one. And I would recommend that you use the chunking up technique that I mentioned briefly in the webinar. So chunk up. So see if you can get them to agree to a higher principle. That's what chunking up is. So if you can't get them to agree on any of the basics, you could just ask, do you agree that we should keep people safe? Do you want me to help you to keep people safe? Yeah, and you could phrase it a little more bluntly. You could say, right, I really apologize if this comes off as a presumptuous question. You might think I'm being so. This is like saying the negative things first. If you remember that tip, it was like if you expect pushback, say the negatives first. You say, well, listen, I'm really sorry if I'm gonna come across as being a little bit slow here, but I just want to ask a real simple question. Do you agree that we should keep people safe? And I go, yes. Okay, right. How far do you think we should go? And that might start a discussion. Now, hopefully you're going to get a yes to that, and you can say, right, do you think we could do more than we're currently doing? And they'll hopefully say yes to that. And you say, okay, well, what more could we do? How far are you prepared to go? And you can start to chunk down in that case. So you've chunked up, and now you get the yes, yes, yes. Start to chunk down into more granular detail until you start to find the boundaries of where exactly, of how far they're prepared to go. And you might not be happy with what those boundaries are, but at least then you'll know and you'll have clarity as to what your role is and what their expectations are. And if you're not happy with how far they're prepared to let you go, then, well, obviously you need to go look for another job. But you'll certainly identify the boundaries, and maybe then once you've identified the boundaries, and if you're able to work within those limited boundaries of how that far they're prepared to go, you might be able to get some wins. And I guess if you take a long-term view on this, what I've done before is once you accept the limitations and you get some wins within these very narrow boundaries, gradually they'll get used to doing things a little bit better, more safely. They will gradually start to see the benefits, and you might start to see the boundaries increase over time. Let's not forget that going from zero to perfect health and safety is a huge gap. And if they're close to zero, if they're right at the very beginning and they're very set in their ways, you're not going to be able to get them to really good health and safety performance and introduce massive changes straight away. You're going to have to take a long-term view, which might be 5 years, might be 10 years of small incremental changes, and I'll give them the time to get used to those changes. And once you've managed to get a change in, see if you can sustain it for 6 months. And then once they're used to it and they're over it and they've seen actually it's not that bad, it actually makes things better. See if you can turn the screw a little bit more. See if you can get another small change in. It's a long-term view. You might think it's not worth the effort, but that's the way you could approach it. If the answer to that first question, though, do you agree that we should do things safely? If that's like a no, then you're going to follow up with some other questions, and you could say, listen, I'm really sorry if I'm going to come across as a bit slow here. You could use that kind of tactic again. So this might seem like a really strange question. You don't seem, at least to me, you don't seem to care that much about health and safety. So you've just told me you don't, and so I've noticed these. I'm not having a go. I'm not having a go. I've noticed that you've pushed back most of my proposals, and fair enough. It's your business. You're absolutely entitled to do that. And I just wanted you to know that I'm behind you, and I will support you and the business's goals, whatever that might be. So I will help you as much as you want me to help you. But you don't seem to care that much about health and safety. I'm just wondering, what exactly would you like me to do here? I just need some clarity on what my role is, because you keep pushing back, and I don't want us to have friction. I want us to work really well as a team, and I'm just confused because I've got my expectations and you seem to have different expectations. I just want to get some alignment. That's all, just so we both understand, so we can work well together. And if you approach it that way, you might hopefully get some kind of honest conversation. And again, clarify the boundaries of your role. Next question. Again, not a question, maybe more of a comment. Sometimes it's the middle managers who are the issue. A former client, a major infrastructure owner, had staff who referred to this middle layer as the permafrost. Nothing good came down from the top and nothing good transferred up from the bottom. Okay, well, we can take that apart. So we've got this permafrost. Nothing good came down from the top. Nothing good transferred up from the bottom. So that it's unclear as to whether the top was trying there. Yeah, that's a bit unclear. Was the top not trying, and that's why nothing good was coming down? Well, again, you need to handle the top first, don't you? But I do remember one organization where I was the health and safety manager, and then ultimately the head of health, safety, and training. We had that similar. It wasn't so much line management; it was more the frontline management, more kind of the production managers, engineering managers, line managers, and that kind of thing. That was the permafrost, where the top really wanted to make things safer, and the bottom kind of did as well, although there were some resistant players there. But it was, how do we win over this middle? The way I did that, well, I guess it's particular to my circumstances, but the way I did that is I used one of the techniques in the webinar, which was I bypassed that middle layer and I went straight to the top. Ultimately, it's up to the top to manage its people. You know, these line managers or production managers, I mean, they don't answer to you. Yeah, you're the health and safety manager. You've got no direct authority over them, but they do answer to someone more senior who might be an ops manager or an ops director or someone like that. And if their team is not doing what they're supposed to do, that's not your fault. And it's not even the team's fault to some extent. It's their manager's fault, their director's fault. And so I would pick it up with them. If you've got a large group of people who are just not cooperating, and it sounds like you've got a whole layer there, that's a failure of senior management, and they need to take responsibility for that. And I was talking to a client of mine recently as well. I'm doing some training for them next week. They've got a similar issue where, yeah, the directors are all saying the right things, but you've got this middle layer who are just not playing ball and not cooperating. And it's mainly because they've got all these targets and deadlines and incentives, and they're actually being incentivized to not take safety all that seriously. Because their boss, despite saying all of the right things, isn't really setting clear expectations. They're not giving them the incentive to work safely. They're not holding anyone to account. Safety is not one of their key objectives or priorities, or none of their KPIs are safety related. So why would you expect the middle to take ownership of health and safety? That's a top management failure, really. And as for nothing good transferred up from the bottom, I guess you might be able to have some influence there, that you could redesign the health and safety consultation process, the health and safety committee, and see if you can get people from the very bottom in a meeting with people from the very top, and just see again in that committee meeting, see if you can just bypass the middle entirely. So you might be able to review some of your structures around communication and consultation, possibly. Next question. Could it be possible to get a PDF of the presentation? Yes, sent you that already. Can I get a link of this to share with my team? Yes, certainly. I'm going to send that tomorrow. You'll probably already get it by the time you get this video. Just send them all on IOSH Managing Safely. Winky smiley face. Yes, well, of course, I deliver IOSH Managing Safely training, so that might be one option. Certainly, that would be an option I'd recommend for your frontline team leaders, supervisors, middle managers, maybe the senior people in some circumstances. But 3 days is a big commitment for a senior person, and that sends a really strong message if they do that. That really does. I have had senior people on that course before. It's like, well, if I can come on the course, you can come on the course. That's the message it sends. But if you can't get them on a course for 3 days because it's too much, then IOSH Leading Safely would be a very good option. And that's a great course, which is very interactive, which helps them pull together some specific commitments on what they're going to do differently in the organization in the future. And if you're going to do that kind of course with your senior managers and directors, it's probably best if we have a good long chat beforehand to see exactly what your challenges are and see what the obstacles are, because like any course, it can be pitched in a particular way. Now, you can't really change the course content all that much, although leading safely, you can actually. You can tweak the content quite a bit. But it doesn't matter what the content is. You can pitch it in a particular way and work around the content. So that might be worth a chat. Anyway, there we are. I hope you found that useful, and enjoy your day. And let me know how all of this goes and whether it works for you or not.